All right, hello, Carolina Preps fans. Back here at the spring football tour. And today's a little bit more of a virtual tour, but nonetheless, catching up with programs around the state. Talking to Watauga head football coach Ryan Habich. Coach, you guys have just been getting it done year after year up there on the mountain, and it's always good to talk football with you. And I appreciate you spending some moments with me today.
Chris, thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate what you do and appreciate what you do for the Carolinas.
Well, thank you. That means a lot, and I'll definitely try to get up there and see you. I know I've been up there before a few times, but always good to kind of hear what you've got going on. Known you for a long time, dating back, I guess, when you was at Fuquay. I remember it's kind of off topic, but I remember coming up there. Man, this is probably like '09 or maybe 10 when you had that young man I gave a football to that rushed for about 1,000 yards in a game. It felt like. What was his name?
Corey Hunter.
Corey
Yeah,
Hunter.
he ran for 460 yards against Panther Creek in
Oh my
2000.
God.
I believe it was 2009.
Now I remember that like it was yesterday. That was a heck of a performance.
I
And
think were you up with the Douglas Bird when we played Douglas Bird in
I
2008?
was in that game the year before, and we had to beat you guys in overtime, and that is still one of the coldest games that I have ever coached in.
Well, I think that coaching here in Boone for 12 years, I think that might have been the coldest game I coached in as well too. There in Raleigh, North Carolina. I mean, that's a cold game.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. Well, anyway, how's things going up there in Boone and on the mountain? And I guess the first thing before we even talk football, how's everybody like in your program and your kids? Have everybody kind of got back to normal after some of the effects from Hurricane Helene? I know it didn't affect Boone as bad as maybe some of the other surrounding areas, but I'm sure you've got a lot of guys that were affected.
Well, yeah, Boone. It was a very unique year. We were very blessed to get. We actually played 10 games. I know some schools in Asheville did not play the full slate of games, but we played 10 games. But the western part of our county got hit pretty hard. So we had players that lost houses. We were out of school for 3 weeks, and to finish out the year, we had to play 3 games in 8 days. So we played, finished up the regular season before the playoffs. We played a lot of football towards the end to get all the games. So and then we missed a lot of school coming back from the storm. We missed a lot of school. And then we came back from Christmas break. We had a lot of bad weather here. So our kids have not been in school a lot. We've had a lot of remote days. It's been very difficult to get the off season started here at Watauga as far as when we come back in January since we've been out of school. But things are getting back to normal, but it's not the same as it was before the storm because we still have kids that have lost houses, and you see some effects, especially the western part of the state where some of our players live.
Yeah, that's tough, and that we're both fathers, and you've been around a while, but it kind of gave the stark realization that football really don't matter when something like that happens. It's good for the community. It gave them something to come back to, and we're always worrying about who wins and stuff. But in the big picture, when you see something that devastating hit your community, it makes you realize that there's a lot more important things sometimes than throwing balls down the field.
Absolutely. Our kids did a great job. We had a really good senior class last year. We had 22 seniors last year, and they did a great job of helping out in the community, serving our community. When we couldn't practice, like I said, there's 2 weeks where we couldn't practice at all. That we went out there and we started serving the community, handing out water, food, going different places. But we had a lot of kids that they were out of their house for 17 days. They couldn't even get access to their houses, and had coaches that had to hike out of their houses. So when we started practicing, it was very unique last year, but like I said, it was a great year despite the challenges that we had. But there's a lot that happened here in the western part of the state, and I know a lot happened in Asheville, but Boone is so big that some parts of Boone weren't hit that hard, but there are parts of Watauga County that got hit really hard with the storm where you had to dig out people's houses from mudslides and different things like that, losing cars, losing houses. But yeah, it puts a lot of things in perspective. And we're like I said, very blessed to have got an opportunity to get back to practice and finish out the year, and are really happy for our 22 seniors. And my son was one of them. They got a chance to play a full slate of games. They get to play all 10 regular season games, and we get made to the second round of playoffs. So very fortunate to get a chance to do that, especially because this senior class that we had last year was the same senior class that basically missed their 8th grade year of football because of COVID. So
Yeah.
real excited about last year that we got a chance to play all our games last year.
Yeah, you guys, you did have a remarkable year. It still in a lot of ways looked very much like Watauga football. I mean, you guys were able to score a lot of points and just really move the ball down the field, which I think has been a staple of your career. And you did go 11-1. You mentioned going to the second round of the playoffs. Came up short against a really super talented Mallard Creek team. But that's nothing to hang your hat against. I mean, you guys had some big wins against some really good opponents this year. TC Robertson, Maiden, AC Reynolds, North Davidson. Those were some pretty solid programs.
Absolutely. I thought, the biggest win really was AC Reynolds early in the year. I believe it was week 4, is before the storm. And AC Reynolds, before the storm, they were a loaded team. They were a very good football team. They were affected a lot with the storms, losing players and everything else. But we had a really big win against AC Reynolds. And like you said, following week, we beat North Davidson. And then we had the storm hit us. And, like I said, we played, I think it was like, what, five conference games that we played in 2.5 weeks. So getting that done. And then, of course, the playoffs, winning the first round and getting a chance to play Mallard Creek again. We beat them in 23, and I got a lot of respect for Mallard Creek. I have a lot of respect for Coach Tinsley and what they do. And it was a tough game to play them the second time. I think they were ready for us. I think they were very motivated for us, since we upset them in 23. So very difficult game, but they're a very good defense. But really pleased at how our team responded last year and finished out the year, and a very competitive football team. And like I said, going 11-1 with that senior bunch was very special.
So we transition now into 25. We had a realignment. The state's moving from the 1A through 4A to the 8A classes. So I'd love to get your take on that. But also, you mentioned how the storm has kind of slowed down you guys getting pushed into the 25 mindset with obviously, a lot of kids not being in school, as you mentioned. How has it been getting the guys in the weight room, and how are you feeling about the spring ball coming up?
Well, Chris, I think every place I've been at, whether it's Florida or in Raleigh at Fuquay Arena here, every place is a little bit different. And I tell people at Watauga, we're a little bit different from the other bigger schools in metropolitan areas like Raleigh and Charlotte and Greensboro and Winston-Salem, where, we've been playing the highest classifications the last few years. So we're playing the Mallard Creeks, the Independents, and, we're about 1,400 to 1,600 students. But it's a rural area. So, and when you compare Watauga, a rural area of 1,500 to a metropolitan area of 1,500, there's a big discrepancy right there. So when you look at like what we do in the off seasons, we're not like a big school where we're going to have football weight training. We don't have football weight training here at Watauga. Our kids are in PE classes. Some of them are. We lift them before school. We lift them during some flex sessions after school. We find ways to do it. But what's a little bit different is our kids are involved in other sports, which most of our better players, they're going to go both ways at Watauga. I think people that play us are probably surprised that our quarterback's playing defense, our running back's playing defense. Where you're playing Mallard Creek, they have an offense, they have a defense, they have special teams. Where our kids are playing both ways, but they're playing multiple sports. So we try to get what we do in the off season to really help our kids out, as far as the kids that are playing basketball, kids that are doing baseball and track. So phase 1 is how we start in January, and that was affected because of all the weather that we had. But it's a 9-week cycle where our kids it's the weight room. It's really making the weight room important. Whether you're playing basketball or if you're playing lacrosse, any sport you're playing, we still want you to hit the weight room. And we don't have our kids in all weight training classes, so it's. I have a great strength coach, and Coach Thomas does a good job of coming before school, where kids can lift before school, after school, and we get some of the kids during their weight training classes where they get 3 days a week. And now we've just transitioned. Actually, this week we transitioned to phase 2, which is a little bit more football specific things that we do. And we call it, we start actually on Monday morning at 6:50. We call our Blue Dawn workout, where whether you play a sport or not, our kids come in the morning. It's more of a team bonding opportunity, but we do a dynamic warm up. We do some form run. We do some drills. And it's not very difficult, but we do some things where we get them together. We do some agility. We teach them how to do the 40-yard starts, and we do a few of those in the morning. And we'll do another one actually tomorrow morning. And then in May, we'll transition over to spring football. And because all our kids are playing other sports, we actually go in the morning. We're a morning practice team in May. The first 4 times we go at 6:30 in the morning. where we'll actually start doing some spring football. The guys that aren't playing at spring sport will do some contact. The guys that are involved in like varsity baseball or track, we don't have them do any contact, but they're there. They're learning the system. So we'll do a little bit more. So we have to be creative of working out our football guys, because I'd say, really about 80% of our key players that will play for us next year are playing a spring sport, or they played a winter sport. So it's a little bit different. I tell people here at Watauga, we have great kids, but it's not the same situation where you have all your kids in one football class that you get to work them year round. Our kids are playing other sports, so we have to be creative, and we're more like a military academy. We're like a military school when I talk about how we prep our guys, and we might not have as much time as other people, but we got to utilize that time, and we got to be effective of how we use our time.
All right. I think it was 2 years ago, or maybe the year before last, you guys went undefeated on JV. But last year, I'm not sure. Were you guys able to play a full season?
No, because we, like that last week, I believe it was 7 days. We played from Friday to Friday. We played 3 games, so we had to cancel the last 2 JV games. But I think our JV team played seven games. We won 3 games, I believe, lost 4. Okay. So the year before, our JVs did quite well. And I always say, like, our JV, I'm probably different from most coaches. Is I don't look at JV records from year to year. I want to develop players. If a player is a really good player and they're physically, mentally, emotionally ready, we'll probably play them at varsity if they're going to play varsity. We're not going to keep kids down as sophomores. As you probably know, our quarterback last year graduated, Maddox Green. I pulled him up halfway through his freshman year to be our starting quarterback, and he started at varsity for 3.5 years. So we played a lot of kids up on varsity as sophomores, because you have to do that with Watauga. It's just to have the quality depth. You can't play kids down on JV, 9th and 10th grade. If a kid's a really good player and he's ready to play varsity and he'll get a lot of key reps on varsity, we'll move him up. But, last year, I think we won three or 4 games. And the year before that, we had some good players that didn't play much on varsity last year, but now we're going to be expecting those guys to play. So I always tell parents and players, we'll really gauge the success of a JV team like 2 to 3 years down the road. So yes. I think we got some guys that didn't play much last year that we're hoping that the success I had 2 years down the road on JV are going to really pay dividends this year on varsity.
And you mentioned the quarterback, and he was remarkable. Who can we look forward to potentially come up and compete for that role this upcoming season?
Well, we got 2 quarterbacks, and I really look at 12 years I've been here at Watauga, and our quarterbacks play a big part of our offense. Our offense is very unique. I think when people play us, not a lot of people like to play what we do offensively. People call us we're not really a wing tee. We're not flex bone. We're a blend of flex bone, wing tee, and spread all combined in one. What we do, so it's very, very difficult for our quarterback. I put a lot on our quarterback. Max was an awesome quarterback for us, but we got 2 quarterbacks competing. One will have upper hand is Cade Keller. He'll be a senior next year, or this upcoming season. He was a junior last year. Multi-sport athlete, plays football, basketball, and baseball. Was actually starting point guard on our basketball team that made it to the Elite 8. So he's a competitor. He got really a ton of reps too last year. So we practiced him and Maddox a lot. So he's a tremendous thrower. He's got a lot of good moxie. He's a good leader. I'm really looking forward to see what he can do. And then our other quarterback was our JV quarterback, Coy Greer, who was a state finalist in wrestling as a freshman. So he'll be a sophomore next year. So feel pretty good about the quarterback position. And what we look for at the quarterback is you got to be – it's not how you can throw, how fast you run. You got to be a great leader, and you got to lead the team, and you got to lead the offense, and you got to score points, and you got to minimize the turnovers. So that's what we look for. We're not looking for those quarterbacks to see how pretty they can drop back and throw and only play one sport. So I love the dual sport athletes at quarterback. I think you show a lot when the kids makes the Elite 8 in basketball, and you see how they compete. I like to see how the kids compete, and that's how I pick the quarterbacks. I don't want just a kid that is a manager. I want a guy that's going to be a leader and lead the offense.
Yeah, I agree. And I love athletes that play multiple sports. I wish more guys would do that. I've never been a fan of the specialization or the travel basketball or whatever. Kids don't get to be kids for very long. That window of being a high school kid is very small. And, as a parent, I don't want to force my kid and pigeonhole him into oh, you got to go play this or that. Let him experience all of it, because we both know that before you know it, they're going to be out there in the real world, and that's just going to be memories.
Absolutely, and like I said, it makes them better. They don't burn out. Like I said, there's a lot of statistics that you can show about them. Just trying to specialize in one sport. And like I said, we're different up here on the mountain. Like our better athletes are multi-sport athletes, and it's awesome. I love it. Our coaches work well together. Our athletic director Dustin Curley coaches football, but he does a tremendous job with all our sports teams. But it's I was really excited about our basketball team this year. Like we've had 5 guys that were on our 11-1 football team, were on the basketball team that won the conference, and they made it to the Elite Eight. And I think our basketball coach likes the guys that play football because they have that extra toughness in them. They have that resilience that you get from playing football, and you carry that over to the basketball court. And we've won the last 2 conference championships in basketball as well with Coach Payne. So. And then baseball, we got a lot of our guys play baseball. We had a big win last night against Alexander Central. So I love to see the multi-sport athlete. And I wish, more, I think more people need to kind of buy into that philosophy of playing multiple sports, because especially when you look at college, we've had a lot of kids go on to play college football here at Watauga, especially for being a small school. But our kids are doing really well. They've all been multi-sport athletes. We got a kid playing at NC State, Isaiah Shirley, played 3 sports in high school. He plays defense and for NC State. The running back at Duke, Anderson Castle, this is actually his 6th year of college football. But, I mean, he played 3 sports. It was 3 sport superstars. So I love the multi-sport athlete.
Yeah, he was phenomenal in the blue up there in Watauga. So enjoyed looking at him. You mentioned one last thing, and I won't keep us too much longer. I know people will probably get tired of watching a long video. But you mentioned winning the conference in some of these other sports. You had the realignment. How do you feel about your new conference and the realignment and things with how you guys fit into it?
Well, we like the conference. Like I said, I think we had 3 different options. So we like where we're at. It's a smaller conference. The hard thing about having a small conference is it's very difficult to find non-conference games. So we have that squared away. But having a 6-team conference, I'd like to have a bigger conference. But we like the teams that are in there. We've had some rivalries with Alexander Central and South Caldwell and Freedom. So really excited about having those teams back in our conference. Those are usually closer games for us, which when I say closer, it's like an hour and a half. So It's not really closer when you're talking in terms of like Raleigh, where it's only 20 minutes away. And then add in McDowell, which is down the mountain, not too far. That I'm looking forward to playing them. Should be a good rivalry. Very similar communities as far as mountain towns. And then adding St. Stephen's, we played them, I believe, in 2017. They were in our conference and they left. So excited about the non-conference schedule. I think we'll have some good games. And then, like I said, we're really excited about some of our non-conference games. Picking up Mount Airy is going to be a great game for us. I know they're going to be loaded this year. Asheville High School court does a great job at Asheville. And then Irwin, Irwin was the #1 seed in the playoffs last year. And then, of course, we played TC Robertson. And then having Ashe County to open up the year. They were in our conference last year. Now we'll play in non-conference, but Coach Hampton does a great job with the air raid offense, and open up with a big rival game would be pretty special up here on the mountain.
All right. Well, Coach, I appreciate your time, and I feel like we've touched all the bases and kind of getting amped up and prepared for the 25 football season up there at Watauga. But as always, you just been very gracious and give me a lot of hospitality every time I come up and visit, and I just appreciate you spending a few moments with us today just to talk about your program.
Chris, you're always welcome. Come back up in the mountain, special place. Like I said, we got a great crowd, great venue here, and our community has really embraced the football program over the last decade. So pretty special place, but appreciate you having us on and covering Watauga football. Go Pioneers.
Thanks, Coach. We'll see you soon.